right, welcome into the Slate, everybody. I will say Happy New Year because this is the last day you are allowed to say Happy New Year. If you watch Curb Your Enthusiasm, you'll know the rules by now. So Happy New Year to all of you. Week 17 wraps up tonight with the Browns and the Steelers. We react to yesterday. We all had some time off here, so we all feel refreshed. We feel ready to go to finish this football season strong. We have about a month to go. And a lot to unpack from yesterday's action. I'm sure that happened this morning on the Sweat, but here we are for the Slate. We take you up until about 6 o'clock. No Madden Sims tonight, so we're here with you until 6. Brendan Glasheen, Geoff, Ulrich, Matt Meiselman. Guys, good to see you again. I think it's been a while. It's been like 3 or 4 weeks since we've all been together. So, Geoff, how are you?
I'm doing great, man. Yeah, I had a nice little Christmas. It's freezing cold here, but, football has gotten me through. I feel safe in saying that, so happy to be here to talk about it more.
Yep, and Geoff is ready for the golf crossover. He's already got his tweets, his content's coming out. He is ready to go. So Geoff is all regrouped. And Matt Meiselman, I hope you are well. I hope you're handling everything well with the NBA and that the mess that is as of right now. What's up with you? Anything good?
I've had just so much fun the last 2 months, just staring at the news feed for all the sports, really, mostly basketball, but there's just been so much to do. I just feel like I've never been busier in my life. It's all self-imposed. Like, no one's making me do any of this stuff, but it's been a good time.
Yeah, it's good. It's good. So let's start with some teams that clinched playoff spots yesterday. The Patriots did. The Bengals did. We've done a lot of Bengals talk, I feel like, in this Zoom call for this show amongst the three of us. The Patriots were kind of like, that was an old topic because they were 2-4, and the question is, are they done? Are they out? And Jeff's like, no, they're a good team. Relax. And I kind of bought into what Geoff said. He was right. They were fine. I can't remember exactly where you both landed on the Bengals, but they are AFC North champs. It kind of sets up well for what we discussed tonight because this division is just so hard to figure out. But Geoff, what do you make of the Bengals here beating the Chiefs? And I think it makes a point about tonight being difficult to figure out, and Kansas City not being the one in the AFC. I think really does open the door for a Titans or a New England or a Colts. Go down the list.
Oh, yeah, no, for sure. I thought the Bengals were a solid team all year. The AFC North has been pretty crazy because I think Matt probably has been one to agree with me on this. Like, the Ravens have just been they were getting by with just the luck of like just riding the right side of variance for so long earlier in the year. And I know Lamar's been hurt, but they just really haven't been that good a team. And I think the Bengals have been the most consistent from start to finish. I think they are a good team. And I think you're seeing Joe Burrow just become, more of the elite quarterback that I think that he is. And I think that people just didn't give him the proper time to recover from that knee injury early in the year. So you add in Jamar Chase. I think the Bengals are a good team. I don't think that they're the best team in the AFC, but any team, the thing with the AFC is it's so wide open. I mean, all these teams have wins against each other. And, the Bengals coming through last week, I mean, they could have easily dropped out of that game and just been like, you know what? It's the Chiefs. It's Patrick Mahomes. We can't come back here. And they came back and they won. It's crazy. So, and the Chiefs are still playing good. Like, we can't just write the Chiefs off just because they lost once in their last 8 games or something. I mean, it's still a very good team. But I keep going back to the AFC, and it's the thing I've said all year. You just take the team that's getting the most undervalued, and the most undervalued team is still the Tennessee Titans because they are 1 win away from the Houston Texans to get the bye, and they're still at plus 500 above the bill. They're more than double the Chiefs, and I'll stick to that. I don't care. I'll live and die by it. Titans defense, they added people in the offseason as well. Those moves are starting to work out. Defense playing very well. I still think they're very undervalued, but I'm not going to sit here and say anyone's a lock because all these teams, super close, super wide open. It's going to be a fun playoffs in the AFC.
Yeah, it feels like, Meiselman, there's no value in Kansas City or Buffalo to win the conference at this point because they're the Titans at plus 500 to Jeff's point. I can't remember if the Titans and the Chiefs have played each other this year head-to-head. But to Jeff's point, if the Titans
killed them.
The Titans beat them. Oh, yeah, that's right. They kicked their butts. That's right. But, yeah, if the Titans win next week, they've got the number 1 seed in the conference, and I think that really does. That changes everything. The idea of going into Arrowhead in an AFC title game, I think totally knocks off the rest of the conference. But if the Chiefs had to travel, or if any other team has to travel to Tennessee, I do feel it's wide open. I think Geoff's right.
Well, it's nice of Geoff, first of all, to include me on the Bengals bandwagon, because it's kind of as if it's been scrubbed from the record that I've been anti-Bengals because we haven't been on here in so long.
Okay, see, perfect. I couldn't keep track. There we go.
I was very wrong about this whole division, because I thought the Ravens would eventually get it together. Obviously, Lamar Jackson got hurt, so I'm not going to take blame for that part of it. But Joe Burrow was playing extremely poorly for about half the season, maybe 10 games or so. And I didn't really consider that he would need more time to bounce back after being injured, and also that he's a young quarterback, and sometimes it just takes guys time. But he clearly has been much better. Like, if you go by Football Outsider stats, DVOA, DYAR, he was one of the worst quarterbacks in the league for a little over half the season. Now he's up to middle of the pack and only seeming to get better. Like, I don't think it's a stretch to say that he'll just keep improving. I don't know if he's as good as he's played the last 2 weeks. He did play against a pretty dismantled Baltimore Ravens secondary, but the game against the Chiefs was really, really impressive, and that's a defense that was playing really well. So I probably had said it multiple times throughout the season that the Bengals were the worst team in the division. So I can't just claim that I was along with Geoff for being on the Bengals. Like, we had disagreed about that team a couple times.
I actually had it in my memory that you were thinking, maybe you just mentioned the Bengals were good value 1 week or something, Matt.
Yeah.
That's what I was remembering, but fair enough. Yeah.
Well, I did think the Bengals were undervalued to start the season. Okay. And then I think it was right after they beat Baltimore on the road, I was like, this is an overcorrection now. They're not actually this good. I think that was the point where I had said, okay, enough. Because no one thought they'd be good at all at the beginning of the season. So I was a little right at first and then very wrong after that. But anyway, I still have to disagree on the Titans a bit, just because I don't think that the personnel matches up with other teams. Of course, it's helpful that they are going to most likely have the number 1 seed, although it's not impossible they lose to the Texans.
It's true. It's very true. The Titans are the type of team where, honestly, if they lost next week and then won 3 in a row, I wouldn't be shocked either. So they're a weird team. I don't disagree, but sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, no, so they already lost to the Texans this year, right? And that one was
exactly.
A game. Yeah. And the team they currently have. Right. They've gotten a little healthier since then, but I still don't think they're great. And I do think the Chiefs are much, much better. The Chiefs have generally just played really well, though I am concerned, even as someone who's anti-Bengals, I took the Bengals on the live line against the Chiefs yesterday because of the offensive line injuries. They lost their backup left tackle in the game after already not having their starting left tackle, who I think got hurt in warm-ups, right? Maybe I'm remembering that right, or at least during the week. So maybe the Chiefs have some offensive line problems that could continue through the rest of the season.
When you got it live, what was the score of the game?
7-0, and the Bengals were plus 7.5 at that point.
Okay.
I think they lost a guy on the first drive, and I was lucky enough to not think of that until they finished the drive with a touchdown. Despite that, so whatever. Maybe I don't deserve much credit for this, but I still think, assuming they get their offensive line intact, the Chiefs are by far the best team. I think the Bills are better than the Titans, and I think the Patriots are better than the Titans. I would even probably say the Colts and the Bengals are better, but those two teams I wouldn't I think the number 1 seed more than makes up for that difference. So the only team that's behind the Titans in betting odds that I think should be in front of them is the Patriots. And I think that if those two teams were to meet in a game in Tennessee, you'd have about a pick'em game. New England might even be favorites on the road because I think they do have they're just so much more of a well-rounded team. Their defense is so much better. I don't think there's anything in particular the Titans do well right now. That could change if Derrick Henry comes back, but I don't know what's the landscape on him, right? We still have at least 3 weeks.
They were saying he could even play next week if it was a must-win. So again, and I look, I rarely disagree with Matt, but the Titans defense, Matt, played really good last 3 or 4 weeks. I think that unit is right up there with the best in the AFC right now. But I won't. The one thing I'll say about the Titans, they have the weakest quarterback of all these teams, absolutely, by a long shot. If Derrick Henry isn't back at 100%, it's trouble. The A.J. Brown thing is good, but I don't know. They own wins against all the big teams. I just still feel this team is a little bit undervalued, but I get why people.
So hard in football. Just a quick thing, they played against the Dolphins, who I never thought were good. I thought that the Saints with Ian Book had a shot. Whatever. Let's not talk about that. But
we were off at that point, so it's fine.
Yeah, whatever. And then Jimmy Garoppolo was playing hurt in the game against Tennessee that we didn't find out about until after the game, and that probably made the defense look a lot better. Like, there's just so much weird stuff in the NFL. Like, how much credit do they deserve for beating the Chiefs at the time of the season where the Chiefs were at their lowest point? Maybe that's because the Titans are good. Maybe it's because the Chiefs are bad. Maybe it's a little both. The Chiefs are different now than they were. Like, it's just, I think it's really difficult to know sometimes. So I don't know. Like, I'm saying this with a lower degree of confidence than normal. Geoff could definitely be right that this is a better team than I'm giving him credit for.
As of today, Mike Vrabel said the Titans have discussed opening Derrick Henry's practice window this week. That was as of just a couple hours ago. So it's happening. Feels like it's happening. Maybe they give him like a preseason workload this week against the Texans just to get his feet wet. Or maybe they wait. Not sure if there's any value in maybe playing him this week. Then again, to Geoff's point, with this Tennessee team, they've been the most beat up as far as the COVID issues, like as far as guys in and out of the roster. They take the prize for that. So they've been resilient.
Well, not just that, like they started the year like Bud Dupree was hurt for a while. He was a big offseason acquisition. They had other guys. Janoris Jenkins is playing better. So, like I said, I just feel like people just have this negative image of the Titans, and I get it. Like they do things a little weirdly. They rely on like Derrick Henry, who goes for like 3 yards a carry, and then he breaks off like an 80-yard run. But I don't know. I just don't think there's a dominant team that you can just write off the Titans because they're on track to get the number 1 seed. Anyway,
hit the nail on the head. It comes down to Tannehill. It comes down to the quarterback play. And if he can manage the game and complete passes and play action and just be a game manager, they'll be in every game. It comes down to him, right? That's what it feels like, at least. How about the NFC? Did you guys watch that game last night? Well, I know you guys watched that game last night. We talked about this a little bit before we went live. What's his first name? Sean Mannion?
Yeah.
Sean Mannion? Yeah, Sean Mannion.
The man, Sean Mannion.
How'd that go? Freaking Kirk Cousins. Anyway, Mike Zimmer, too. Wow. Some people you think Belichick's cold. Wow. Mike Zimmer, what he had to say last night about Kellen Mond, that is something. Anyway, talk about just the team that is crumbling now all of a sudden. But the Packers, man, they take care of business. It's all. I've heard this before. It's all setting up for Aaron Rodgers once again to have a waltz to the Super Bowl. Geoff Ulrich. I don't know who's beating this team, but I've said that before.
It's not going to be a waltz. I mean, they're going to have to be 2 quality teams. You know, the Packers are good. They're certainly not unbeatable. And the thing is, like, you know, I think in the AFC too, like, this is another reason why I like the Titans. I mean, I just feel like they could get an easy draw in their first round, but I like the Packers. There's really no easy draw. Like, what, you have to face the 49ers or something, and like, you know, maybe like win a shootout or the Cardinals. I mean, that's tough, man. And then you come back, you probably face the Cowboys or the Bucks or something. It's rough, but they're clearly the most consistent team. Aaron Rodgers is just, regardless of what you think or regardless of how he's on another level right now. I mean, he absolutely is with the efficiency. You know, the Packers are at a point where none of this matters if they don't win the next 2 games, but I'm not week 18, the games after that. But they're very well-rounded team. And to their credit, they've done what they needed to do. Maybe they didn't get the flashy wide receiver, but that's never really been their problem. Their problem has been their secondary. Their secondary is absolutely insanely good this year. And if that holds up in the playoffs, I do think they'll get there. They're my pick to win preseason, and they're still my pick right now.
What do you think, Meiselman? What do you think of this team? Green Bay, favorite to win the title right now.
I really feel like the NFC is just priced fairly. Like I don't see.
Yeah, I have no interest in betting the NFC either. Like there's like no one that I want to bet. Sorry, Matt, I didn't interrupt.
Yeah, so we're totally on the same page here. Like they deserve to be. I think they deserve to be the Super Bowl favorites. I think having home field over the Chiefs, even if I would say the Chiefs are the better team, like that gives them the leg up in terms of probability to win it all. I still think the Cowboys are a little undervalued, although like they're just weird. I like losing Gallup. I wonder how much that's going to matter. He's their third receiver, so in theory, it's not a huge deal.
It's not that weird. They're kind of like what Brady did in New England for 20 years. They beat up on their bad division, and they're 6-5 against everyone else.
Yeah, so it's hard to know when you look at a football schedule. Like strength of schedule is very important. The problem is with such a short season, you often can't actually assess how hard a team's schedule was because you play teams at different times when they're playing well or not playing well, when there's injuries, when there's not injuries, and then guys are playing, but they're playing banged up or with, different spots with different travel. Like you play a team coming off a bye, it's different than playing a team who's had a couple road games in a row. So I guess you could say the Cowboys maybe have just had an easier schedule, but like, is the Packers division good? I mean, it's not like they've played tough teams there either. I just think at 11-1, the Cowboys feel like a slight value. I don't really think I'm interested in betting the NFC right now either, but if I had to pick a team, I think that would be my choice.
How about the Rams? They've won 5 in a row. Stafford makes some really wow. The Lions still lives in Matt Stafford a bit, but I don't know. I mean, he turned it around a bit yesterday. That's a tough spot. I know Baltimore is down Lamar Jackson, but Rams are. I give the Rams credit. Like they've made some moves here. They've gone all in. Other team in their division has just. Well, we said it at the time. I did not understand what Arizona was doing. Like resting Murray as long as they did. Maybe he was that banged up, but the Rams got the division and they're at plus 850. That kind of jumps off the page a little bit.
Yeah, I mean,
maybe not.
I think it does a little. Like,
okay.
I think the Rams should be like 8-1. Is that a hot enough take? Like, I think you're right to a very small, like you're directionally right. I'm just not very excited about it, if that makes sense. I'd rather bet the Rams right now than the Packers. I think I'll agree to that. And I definitely would rather bet the Rams than Tampa. Like, I don't think that the line there appropriately accounts for what's going on with that team with all the receivers. Although I'm reading this now, the Bucs didn't actually release Antonio Brown yet. So maybe they won't. I don't know. It's you guys weigh on that.
There is paperwork that has to be filled out here. Like this whole cutting him on the spot thing sounded funny, but you can't do that.
It's a weird spot for Tampa because I mean, it's kind of like I think it's as severe as, do you want to win the Super Bowl this year, or do you just want to cut a guy out that's just a really bad look for your franchise? Because you kind of hate to say it as if you're a Tampa Bay Bucs fan, but you're not winning the Super Bowl without Antonio Brown right now. I really believe that. I just think that with the way the Bucs play, it's going to be too easy for teams to just cover Mike Evans. And nobody else has really stepped up. Gronk a little bit, but I don't think Tampa can win without Antonio Brown. I firmly believe that. I agree with 100% with Matt just said. Tampa, the odds haven't dropped enough to give us a value on them without Antonio Brown. And I don't even know if I'd be interested. I think I'd rather go to the AFC and bet the Titans to win the Super Bowl or something. Mm-hmm. Although I don't really have interest in that. Just take them to win the conference. But the Rams are they seem to just do flashy things well, but they also just they kind of just show that they're not good in all facets. They losing to the Titans at home was the epitome of the Rams. Okay, you're a good team. You're going to take care of this team. They don't have Derrick Henry. They're no AJ Brown. Yeah. They just get slaughtered. It feels like that's going to happen. They might get one flashy win, and then they'll face the Packers or maybe even the Cowboys, and they'll just get run over. I just don't think that they're a complete enough team for me to really buy into. I don't know. They got the division. I'm not really that interested though in them rest of the way.
Well, they're finding a way. I mean, I think when you win 5 in a row, and it was a pretty desperate Baltimore team yesterday. I just thought they showed me something there. They could have easily folded and not win that game. It's a
desperate Baltimore team, but it's still not a very good Baltimore team, and it's still a team the Rams should be beating with a little bit more urgency. I know the Packers just about gave away
on the road. That West Coast team in cold Baltimore. I don't know. That showed me a little something.
Wow.
Matt Stafford's never been in these spots before. Can we acknowledge that? If the fact they're winning games at this time of year, that is a new thing.
The one thing Matt Stafford has, he's got experience playing at Lambeau Field, right? So
yeah, good point.
Yeah,
but you guys are probably right about Tampa. Then again, Brady's won Super Bowls without Gronk, without Edelman. That's the only thing I would add. But the number where it is, it's not you're right. You're not getting value. It's not reflective of the Brown news. And if there was a guy they couldn't lose, it was Godwin, in my opinion. If they lost Evans, I still think Tampa's got a shot. But
and Fournette too.
Fournette.
I think it's okay. I think it's okay losing him. I mean, he is a good pass catcher, but he is a running back. I think you're right. Godwin is the key there, and it's not I would say the Bucs can't win. I mean, Evans, if he gets himself healthy and Gronk is playing well and stays healthy, they definitely could win. It's just it hurts them enough where I think they should be behind Dallas in the betting.
I mean, saying they can't win is hyperbole by me as well. But like Scotty Miller, Tyler Johnson, one of those guys could step up too. But I think the biggest thing is where they are in the odds right now, I don't think is reflective of their chances. It's a better way, more appropriate way to put it.
Okay, so we had another week of games, and this stuff is fun to talk about. We'll do it again next week and probably the week after because, well, the regular season's ending. There is a game tonight we're going to discuss now. We will get to some look-ahead lines for next week. Also want to get your thoughts on a couple of really interesting twists and turns in player awards, the Mac Jones-Jamar Chase battle for Offensive Rookie of the Year. Also, we mentioned Joe Burrow, the Burrow-Dak discussion. I'm curious as to how you might look at this award for comeback Player of the Year because of the game scripts that could be expected this weekend and just how Burrow is on a complete high right now. But there is a game tonight. We should get into it now. Browns, Steelers. We will start on the betting side of things here. So this line has completely flipped. This was a situation where Cleveland was the 3-point favorite. I think at 3.5-point favorites. And then we find out not only are the Browns eliminated, that was the second piece of news, but the first bit of news was last Thursday when Big Ben teased at the idea that this would likely be his last regular season home game as a member of the Steelers. So now the Steelers are 2.5-point favorites at -120 on the DraftKings Sportsbook. Is this a complete overreaction? Should it have been the other way around? But with this news, Browns being out and Big Ben, this could be the Steelers Super Bowl tonight, Geoff. Does this make sense?
I don't know. I mean, I've already thought so much, like way more about this game than I really thought I would. It's such a weird situation. Like it's not only do we have the retirement thing, but like this game went from potentially being very meaningful to absolutely meaningless. Like in the span of
in a way.
What's that?
But now it's kind of meaningful again.
Like but it's still, you're right. That's what's weird about it.
Too.
Like
they're not. Steelers aren't 100% out of it.
Right,
yet,
they
right?
can still get in. Yep.
I guess. What's the scenario for them to get in? I forget.
Ah, crap.
The Colts have to lose.
All right, you keep going and I'll find it.
I know that it involves the Colts losing to Jacksonville this week.
Yeah, right. I mean,
right, well,
that again, it is a lot. You're right. The Steelers have some motivation, but so it's not completely meaningless. But they're very long odds to get in, but then you have this Steelers narrative. So, like, I think the Browns are the better team here. I really do, but. Yeah, and to potentially, I mean, the way they moved the ball against Green Bay last week, like you could argue they're a little bit unlucky not to win that game. But now you've got a deflated Browns team who are down. You've got Baker Mayfield, who is either playing through injury or just terrible. Neither one of those scenarios is good. And now he's facing like one of the best pass rushes in the league. I do think that this is more appropriate where it should be. I think Pittsburgh should be favored now. It's weird when you're factoring in motivation and stuff like that, but I think you kind of have to do it here. And I think you might see a scenario where the Steelers just get after Baker to the point where, and Ben just throws a couple early touchdowns for that narrative. And all of a sudden the Steelers win by a bit. So I'm still kind of on the Pittsburgh side. I guess I'm buying into all this stuff, but I don't know. It's a weird game because I think if this was just a regular season game, the Browns should have been favored. So right. I'm basically buying into all this stuff and all these different factors that are factoring into this game. And it's just, it's one of those late season NFL scenarios where, you could say you're getting the better team at like a price you wouldn't normally get it. But man, there's a lot of things going against the Browns. It feels like tonight.
Jaguars have to beat the Colts, like Meiselman said. The other scenario that has to happen, one of these two teams must win: the Raiders or the Chargers.
They can't tie, is essentially.
Well, yeah.
Chargers. Oh, I see. They're playing each other. Okay.
They can't tie because, that's very strange.
Okay, so I guess the Steelers are live. That's fair. That's fair. I adds into the Steelers thing I just said. So, yeah. I don't think the Jags are beating the Colts, but that's fine.
Yeah, that line's 15.5, even though it's in Jacksonville.
So
because Jacksonville has nothing to play for. They may even rest. Does that even matter? It's the Jaguars. But
yeah.
So Mike Tomlin, if they rest their starters.
Mike Tomlin has a very good record against the spread at home as a dog. He's 12-2-1. And then I think the other record I saw, the other trend with the Browns, they're 2-12 in their last 14, I think, against the spread in their division. Meiselman, what's your read on this game?
So I definitely want to come back to some other interesting Week 18 lines in terms of motivation and things like that after we talk about this game.
Sure, yes.
But I don't know which way I'm leaning here as far as like motivational factors, playing time, all of that. I do think there's a disconnect though between the betting line and what people will expect in the showdown. So if you have a strong opinion, you have an edge in one of the two areas, because if you think that the Browns are maybe going to give less playing time to their regulars, then you have a massive advantage if you're right for showdown, where I don't think the ownership will reflect that. If you don't think that's the case, though, and you do think the Browns are going to go out and try to win, maybe try to end the Steelers season, maybe they just, treat this as any other game, and these teams are basically playing with the same amount of intensity, the Browns should not be plus 2.5 or plus 125 or anything like that on the money line. Like, they're the better team, even with Baker Mayfield playing hurt, not being very good, all of those things. The Steelers have been really bad this year, and I don't expect that to stop just because this is like a special game for Roethlisberger. I mean, the Steelers have had plenty of reason to play hard all year, and for the most part, they've just been bad. So, I don't think that they're going to come out extra fire. I mean, they're going to be fired up because it's a primetime game at home. Beyond that, I don't think this is anything extraordinary. I know,
but they've been good at home all year. They have a very good home record outside of their first couple games of the year. Titans win, Ravens win close, the tie with Detroit, win at home against Chicago on Monday night. I mean, they played a really good Kansas City team last week.
Wouldn't include tie with Detroit as a good outcome.
That's why I whispered it.
Yeah, and they got for that game though.
Yes, that's true. It did get blown out by the Bengals at home also. I mean, I don't know if it's they have been better at home for sure. And this is the primetime game. I'm sure the crowd would be louder than usual. It's just the Browns are the much better team unless you account for them not really caring and the Steelers caring a lot. I think this line was as high as Browns minus 3.5.
It was.
Yep.
Maybe that was under the assumption that the game mattered for Cleveland and not for Pittsburgh.
Agreed.
I don't think that line would have made sense. If both teams were fighting for a playoff spot and this mattered equally for both teams, I think the Browns are -1. I don't think it would have been as high as 3 or 3.5. So what should the line be? I mean, I still think the Steelers probably win, but getting plus 125 on the money line, I think, is a value. I think getting the 2.5 points at even money is a value. It probably gets to 3. If you get 3 at minus 115, I think there's a little value there. Mm-hmm. Unless the Browns plan on, sitting Mayfield for the second half or not playing Nick Chubb his normal amount of snaps. And we don't know yet if Kareem Hunt is even going to be out there at all. That's where I think the showdown is interesting, because if your hunch is that the Browns don't give their starters the regular reps, including the quarterback, there is a massive advantage to gain on the field, who's basically just playing this.
Why do you think that? Why do you think that will happen though? It's not like they have another young quarterback behind. No,
I don't necessarily think that will happen, but I think it explains why the betting line is where. Unless there's something weird going on like that, this betting line doesn't make sense. So if you disagree with that premise and you just say no, the Browns are going to try to win, you should probably bet on the Browns. But if you agree and you think maybe something weird could happen and maybe the Browns won't, give the regulars the normal amount of playing time, then you look to showdown and you say Nick Chubb is going to be chalk, especially if Kareem Hunt doesn't play. Baker Mayfield and Jarvis Landry, maybe they'll be between 30 and 50% each, but people are playing these guys. The amount of lineups that are just going to go, I'm not playing any Browns except Dearness Johnson and Rashad Higgins, and that's it. Because I think that the Browns are going to pull their starters. No one's going to do that. I mean, because people, unless you're in a single entry, smaller field kind of thing, people just build their showdown lineups based on optimizers for the most part. They may press a few buttons to make sure they get the Steelers defensive captain, because that's a trendy thing for people to do. Play the defensive captain. That's the most common showdown strategy right now. Or at least play the defense in some capacity. The Packers were 50%. It's just absurd. But some people might do that, but for the most part, I think people are going to play what industry-wide projections suggest. And if you don't see Kareem Hunt there, Nick Chubb's going to be the highest projected player in this game. So if you think maybe they just give Dearness Johnson half the reps because the game doesn't matter, no one's playing him. I think you may get people that go for the Steelers onslaught stack, but at 4,800, I have to give Geoff the credit now because I'm remembering where I got this idea from. He said it already. This wasn't my own thing, but he's $4,800. He's going to be 1% owned if we don't get any sort of weird news. And if Kareem Hunt's out there, that's what I'm saying. No one's playing him. If Hunt's inactive, maybe 5% or 10% play Johnson. But if you really think, and again, like, I don't know if this is true or not, this is just, running through the scenarios. If you think Nick Chubb might get like half the workload because the game doesn't matter and they're saving him for next year and Johnson gets the other half, it's an absurd leverage play on a slate where like Chubb could be up there for, top 2 or 3 most owned players.
And look, they're giving Dearness Johnson series. Like, he's playing full series on his own. So,
yeah.
I mean, it's a potential where he just gets in the end zone maybe too, right? Like, you've got that scenario as well for showdowns. So I don't know, man. Like I think the most likely scenario is the Browns just play their starters this week because like they still have a full week and they can rest people next week. But if this one gets out of hand early, I could see Nick Chubb sitting most of the second half. Absolutely. I could even see like Baker Mayfield taking a seat or something. It's going to be a weird one for showdown. And yeah, I think I agree with Matt. This isn't like the spot where, especially if you're putting like maybe like one entry in or something, you'd necessarily just want to rely on optimizers. You got to think about some of the different scenarios here and how that could affect ownership and stuff.
I'm trying to understand this though. You guys, do you think it's that broken in Cleveland? Like, you know what, Nick, Nick Chubb, you take a seat.
No. We're not saying Nick Chubb is bad. We're saying there's no point, Glash. There's like what point does an NFL franchise have?
I'm guessing.
Like,
I don't know.
He's a high volume. It's a variable position where guys get injured and like their careers end. Like, I mean, if you're wasting your Nick Chubb reps, like a running back has like a lifespan, and those lifespans get eaten up when they take carries. And if you're wasting Nick Chubb's lifespan in a meaningless game, it's just bad management. Now, most NFL teams are poorly managed, so you're probably going to see him get 30 carries, but there's definitely a situation where, rationality takes over and like, well, we're losing this game by 20 in the second half. Let's just sit Nick Chubb now.
Okay, 20 makes sense, I guess. Yeah, I'm just.
Well, there's one important thing to elaborate on.
I don't think the Steelers are good enough to go up 20 against someone.
That's another point. Yeah,
it doesn't have to be because of a blowout. They may just say like, we're going to give him reduced workload because this game doesn't matter. He'll play, but he'll just play less.
All right.
But the other thing that I think is really important to make as a distinction here is that I agree. Like, Geoff and I are on the same page as far as the most likely outcome is the Browns just try to win. But even if that's true, you can still play showdown GPPs with massive top-heavy payout structures and set up lineups for a scenario where that's not the case, even if there's only a 15% chance of the Browns, just rolling over and let's say Chubb only plays 40% of the snaps. Like, even if there's only a 15% chance of that, 1% of the field is going to play for that situation. So if you're right, there's a lot to gain in GPPs specifically for playing for that outcome, even if it's the less likely out, even if it's a very unlikely outcome, it's more likely by a significant amount. Assuming you like agree, relatively speaking, with this calculation, that even if it's a 10, 15, 20% chance that this is how the game goes, no one's going to be expecting it. So if you're right, there's a lot of ground to make up in these big fields, top heavy payouts, all those things where all these like replacement players on the Browns have zero ownership because they don't look good in projections. That's basically what it is. And the amount of times that a guy is chalk or even like moderately owned when he just projects terribly, like that doesn't happen because the vast majority of the field, even if they're not using an optimizer to build the lineups, they're still using projections in some basic sense for the most part to make these decisions. So it's not like I think Browns probably play to win, but if they don't and you're right about that, then you can gain a lot.
Okay. The Baker point I get too. They might. It feels like they've already made their mind up with how that game went against the Packers on Christmas Day. I don't think what's going to change for Baker Mayfield between now and the offseason for them to make a decision on him, right?
Well, yeah, that's another discussion because doesn't he have still was he under contract for one more year, right? Is that right? They have an option? I can't even remember.
I think they have a way to get out of it.
Yeah. I don't know. I mean, it's
he does because Baker, because he's in that class of Lamar, Josh Allen. He has not had his fifth-year option picked up yet.
Okay, so I mean,
he can go to the market.
I think Baker is playing injured this year, but I think that
I agree with you. They might have already made up their mind.
You're going to see an honest QB competition. They'll probably sign Teddy Bridgewater. That's what
Well, I guess what I'm trying to say is I don't know what the motivation would be for Baker Mayfield to go out and prove it for the Browns. He might be like, good, get me out of here. Can we go somewhere else, start over?
Who knows? That's going to be an interesting offseason there. For sure.
I'm just curious, like you guys have mentioned, and add on top of it, he's hurt. So how much is he willing to push it? And that I get no matter what. But see, I look at that one no matter what the score is, right? But if they're down 20, like you guys said, get Chubb out of the game. I get that. But with Baker, if you aren't right, no matter what, you're leading by 6, down 10, you might be like, get me out of here. You guys are not keeping me next year, and I need to get a contract. I can't hurt myself anymore, I guess is what I'm trying to say.
Yeah.
All right, Meiselman, what's the game that you're looking at next week? Look ahead spots.
Okay, let's talk about the game that means literally nothing, I think, or are the Lions still competing for the first overall?
Well, according to Pierce Dietrich, the Lions are a Super Bowl contender, but he's not on the show, so
he can't defend that take here. So
perfect.
That's pretty amazing. I think we should talk about this game a little bit. Unfortunately, there's no first half line for it, which is what I'm most interested in. Geoff and I, were we rolling it when we were talking about this? I don't think we were.
No, we weren't.
Okay, so we'll do it again now. The Packers are, from my understanding, going to
You are correct. It's not there.
Did it disappear again? Oh, or just the first half line?
The first half line is not there, yes.
Game's up, no first half line. My understanding is Rodgers and Adams and probably most of like the veteran starters on both sides of the ball will play 1 to 2 quarters. And we had this situation last year in one particular example where the Bills played the Dolphins and the Bills said that Josh Allen and Stephon Diggs and basically everyone else who's a veteran, or at least like an important player to the team, is just going to play, the first half basically. And for that game, the Dolphins were underdogs, or I think maybe they moved to it was close to a pick'em game, but the first half line and the second half line were the same because sportsbooks are not, for whatever reason, they don't read the news in the same way that like someone who's an attentive football follower or even sports follower. It's like one of the few advantages where the algorithm breaks a little bit, because when you see a situation like that, the line for the first half and the second half should be very, very different. And generally speaking, the first half spread is just half of whatever the game spread is, or something close to that. If the line's 3, the Packers might be -2 in the first half. But if we get clarification that Rodgers will play one half with Adams and the second half will just be like Jordan Love and a bunch of backup receivers, like that's a situation where the Packers deserve to be -6 maybe in the first half and +6 in the second half, and you have value on both sides of that now. So this is the game for sure, and especially because we don't know if Jared Goff is going to play either. This is the game I'm watching most closely for news in terms of like, let's get a clear understanding of the playing time situation for the Packers, which I think we will get at some point. Like, I think they will say it. I don't think they're going to go into the game with the 1 seed locked up and just be like, yeah, we'll see how Rodgers feels. We'll let him go. Maybe he'll play the whole game. Maybe he won't. Like, I think they'll be pretty explicit about it. So once we have that, I think it'll be pretty good value spot to attack a half line or a prop line or something like that. And then live betting props too. Like, if Rodgers is playing a half, like I'm really curious what like his passing yards over under would look like. And maybe you just bet it, at a certain point in the game, something like that. But I think this is the key game this week where we have uncertainty like that. Unfortunately, like we don't actually have any situations where a team can wait to see how another team will fare in terms of wins and losses and then set up their rest situation accordingly, because the NFL scheduled the week.
The Saturday games.
Yeah, the Saturday games, and then they pushed the important one, I think, was Saints-Panthers is a 4:00 game, even though those are East Coast teams.
Yeah.
Because the 49ers could have rested players if the Saints lost.
Yes.
I think I may have that.
You're right. You're right. 100% right.
San Francisco, with that win against Houston, it didn't matter for them because they had the result of the Saints-Panthers game.
Okay. It's not. This week is Saints-Falcons. That's the one I'm referring to.
Yeah.
And then Tampa-Carolina. It's 2 separate games, but they're all at 4:00.
They moved those ones. The main are the Saints-Falcons and the 49ers-Rams, because that decides the last playoff spot. Those two both afternoon games. And then, like you said, we've got the meaningless games on Saturday with the Eagles and Cowboys. Although the Cowboys could still move up a spot. But, I mean, I don't know. I mean, like, you've got the Eagles at +7. It feels like maybe there's already factoring in some resting going on.
No, that's a COVID thing. So that one's super interesting, too. The Cowboys were -1.5 yesterday. And Dallas Goedert, Jason Kelsey, and several other guys are on the COVID list. But 5 days from now puts them at Saturday, and they might play. The Eagles don't need them to play, right? The Eagles can wind up as the 6 or 7. But they can't miss the playoffs. They clinched, and they can't move up any further. So they may just say, like, these guys aren't going to practice all week. We'll just hold them out.
Mm-hmm.
Or, like, if those guys all play, the Eagles should not be a touchdown underdog at home against the Cowboys. Yeah, so, like, that could be a really good spot, too.
Yeah. It's an interesting one. Dallas definitely has more to play for, and they're coming off, like, a bad loss. So, but, yeah, I don't know. Just the Saturday games are kind of, whatever.
Well, Kansas City has to win, right, to get the 1. Kansas City's still playing for the 1 seed. That matters.
Right,
that's
but
true.
They can't get it unless the Titans lose to the Texans, and they may just say that's not likely enough for us to really give it our all here.
Doesn't Andy Reid's not really a rest guy, though. I'm going to have to go back and check this. I'm pretty sure Andy Reid, like, never rests his players. So I would expect, if anything, well, I mean, the line's already 9.5.
So the rest games are at 1 o'clock on Sunday. The 4 o'clock windows, like Jets, Bills, Patriots, Dolphins, those games matter for who wins the AFC East.
Yeah, I think a couple 1 o'clock games matter too, but the ones they matter in conjunction with are also at 1 o'clock. So, like, the Bengals, let's say the Chiefs lose, the Bengals and Titans would then both be alive for the 1 seed, but they play at the same time.
And they matter for draft picks, as producer Andrew said.
This is just like it's like the Zach Galifianakis gif, like. This whole week is like that.
So Meiselman, though, you make some pretty good points there. Like, keep an eye on live lines, keep an eye on second half lines. Get involved in those second half lines, particularly on Sunday at 1 o'clock when you're watching Red Zone or whatever.
Sorry, go ahead, Glash.
No, that's all. I'm just kind of. There are some lessons to be learned here. It's a unique week. It's unique from other weeks. Like, there's some benefits here if you keep an ay on stuff.
As we're talking about those games that matter at early. Why are the Bengals plus 2.5 against the Browns?
So if they also determine that they can't realistically get to the 1 seed because the Titans, let's say, are up at halftime, or they just are like, the Titans aren't going to lose to the Texans. And Joe Burrow may not be 100%, right? Like, he hurt his knee right at the end of the game. Like, I don't think it's crazy that the Bengals don't play their starters the whole game. I have to imagine that's factored in the line to some extent. Like, it could be a situation where the Bengals go out and they say, we're going to keep a close eye on Tennessee. And if Tennessee is beating Houston by 20 at halftime, we're going to pull our guys.
Okay, got it.
Yeah, I mean, the one thing I'd say there is we just finished talking about the Browns. I think the Browns, I don't think Baker plays next week. I don't think Nick Chubb plays next week.
Again, how much does Baker like?
That's a good point. It's a good point. I'm just saying. I think there's going to be a lot of Browns sitting out next week.
Yeah, for sure. But Nick Mullins, to me, is like pretty close to Baker.
Yeah, I think I would I'm still more interested in the Bengals there, even if it's like backups against backups. So just something to consider. I think the Browns are just going to shut it down next week. So it just still sticks out to me, even if you get like a series of Joe Burrow. It's kind of like the Lions and the Packers, game, I feel like. Anyways, that one just jumped out.
Yeah, but let's say if the Chiefs lose, that won't. Well, then it changes a lot because the Bengals could then get the 1 seed,
and that line will probably flip, right? Like,
actually, maybe I need to check this again. Do the Bengals need the Chiefs to lose to get the 1, or as long as the Titans lose and they win? Who gets it if Tennessee loses and Kansas City and Cincinnati both win? Still Cincinnati. I mean, it's still Kansas City.
New England might be in the mix too at that point. New England and Buffalo.
Yeah, if
New England
Kansas
needs
City
Buffalo
loses,
to lose, though.
Right.
I think the Bengals need Tennessee and Kansas City to lose.
Yeah.
The Patriots need all of that and Buffalo to lose. So that one, Buffalo's playing the Jets right at home. Yeah, I think New England is probably going to be like, that's also interesting for New England too, right? Like, their game doesn't matter if they assume Buffalo wins.
Yeah, possibly. I don't know.
Who knows?
Robert Saleh, maybe he's got those guys believing a little bit. I don't know. Probably not.
If they didn't win last week, I don't know if they're ever going to win again. I mean, they had it.
Yeah. Oh my God. What that play call on 4th and 2. Oh, this is coming from someone who had the under in that game. I was so mad. Oh. Anyway.
But it's interesting to go through all of these because when we just started talking about this, I thought the Packers-Lions was like really the only interesting thing as far as news. There's actually, I mean, we've gotten to 4 games already that are really on. So maybe that's the one that'll be the most obvious because like the Packers are going to say, here's what we're doing. The other teams are kind of dependent on what's happening across the league. But still, though, like there's a lot there's a lot to look at as far as like motivation and playing time and like whether guys will.
I mean, you could even go to like some of these meaningless games, like who's going to start a quarterback for the Vikings if Kirk Cousins, if he gets cleared. I assume the Vikings will go up to like -6, won't they?
That's what I thought, but I'm looking at this now, and it's 2.5, and I think the expectation is for Cousins to play.
I don't see the Vikings on here unless I'm missing. Oh, there they are, Bears. Okay, yeah.
Yeah, that's the thing. It's kind of weird because I do think the expectation is Cousins will be back, and Zimmer said he's not playing Kellen Mond. So I don't know. Maybe there's like some people, some trepidation. People just don't. I don't know.
Last thing before we go, any thoughts on these?
Yeah, go ahead.
No, we only have a couple minutes left.
All right. My last point of the Vikings was just like, what if Dalvin Cook and other guys don't play, but Cousins, so they it might be weird where they want Cousins to play, but they rest other people.
Yeah. All of this being said, this definitely factors into this last question, but I think these two are the most intriguing. Rodgers is getting MVP. I think that one's over, but comeback player of the year with Burrow and Dak is interesting. And then finally, the Jamar Chase, Mac Jones flip. Mac Jones is now plus 175 to win the award, but I'm sure these meanings behind these games is going to have a lot to do with how game scripts formulate, right?
Yeah, and then Cooper Kupp and Jonathan Taylor are both minus 110 for Offensive Player of the Year. Like all these, I think the one that's least up for grabs is Rookie of the Year. Like I think Chase pretty solidly has it. But like I think Comeback Player of the Year, that's a really difficult award because it's not necessarily based on stats and merit. It's based on it's not a value award. It's a story. Like that's so much more of a thing for Comeback Player of the Year than let's say Rookie of the Year, Offensive Player of the Year.
Right.
So I really have no idea.
Well, to your point, Burrow might have the win of the year for that, for knowing that team, just their whole story as a team. Like Burrow probably beats Dak. I know Dak had a catastrophic injury, but like we just talked about, they went 5-0 against their division and mediocre against everybody else.
If the Bengals get the 1 seed, Burrow wins. I feel pretty good about that take. But otherwise, I think it could go either way.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, this one was at Burrow was plus 600 a few weeks ago, and I never really understood it. I mean, I know his play over the last few weeks has been way, way better, but it's not like Dak was having the MVP year either. And even now, I'm still surprised that Burrow is the underdog. I still think there's some value there. I mean, the Bengals had such a huge turnaround, and you could argue the Cowboys defense has been the bigger story there anyways. So I don't know, they're both coming off pretty catastrophic injuries. I mean, I think you could actually argue Burrow's was harder to overcome. So I've never understood the odds in this one. But it does seem like the market still thinks it's going to go to Dak. It's interesting. Yeah, I don't know. I've never understood this line all year.
Right. Well,
they should be neck and neck. I just feel like they should be neck and neck. I think it should go to Burrow. He's had the more productive year. I think he's had more to do with his team's comeback.
Right. It's just hard because Dak missed more time last year, right? And that's part of the equation, and also it's somewhat dependent on whose injury looked worse and who people think had a harder rehab to come back. I truly don't know. I know those are part of the picture. I just don't know who that favors because they both were out a while.
This one just feel like it's going to Dak since the start of the year. And even with if Burrow can't move the needle to the fact where he's a favorite after his last 2 games, I just don't know if it's going to move. So
right. I think it takes the 1 seed. Otherwise, yeah, you're probably right.
Yeah. I feel like you probably maybe just lay off this one or even just bet Dak. I don't know.
All right, that's it. We ran out of time. Great show. Look forward to tonight. I'm now all of a sudden interested. I'm interested in to see how this looks for Big Ben. Big Ben deserves this. I know there's a lot of stuff with Big Ben off the field, but this guy's been a pretty big deal. This guy's done. I know he hasn't said career's over, but I don't know. I'll kind of miss watching him run around throwing his big body at people running around. So I will take advantage of it. But on the Sunday night or Monday night stage. So. Thanks to Eamon and Andrew behind the scenes. For Matt Meiselman, Geoff, Ulrich. Matt, you're back tomorrow. NBA, yes?
Yep.
Okay. We'll dive in. That's a mess. We'll dive into the NBA and see who's in, who's out. That's basically that show these days. Who's playing, who isn't. And then
we'll go from there. So thanks for watching the Slate. Be sure to watch the Sweat tomorrow at 11 a.m. on the DraftKings Twitch page, YouTube page, and also here on the DK Nation Twitter. We'll see you later.